second. All right. As everyone's aware, every week we hold a community teleconference whereby we allow for an opportunity for our community to hear the ongoing updates with regards to COVID-19 and what the city is doing in response to that. And just before I continue, I do want to introduce myself in case we do have individuals who are new to the call. My name is Marcia Noel. I'm assistant to the city manager, and I will be moderating tonight's call. Just so everyone is aware, this call is being recorded and broadcast on the city's TV channel and social media. All lines are muted with exception to our speakers tonight. Our call consists of staff reports that you'll be hearing from members of our Emergency Operations Center. This will consist of the various section chiefs who have been participating in their capacity with the Emergency Operations Center since March. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and get reports started. We're going to first begin with our city manager, Mr. Jonathan Evans.
Thank you, Marcia, and thank you for the members of the community listening in at home. Obviously, we've been dealing with COVID-19 since March 20th when we enacted an emergency declaration. This emergency declaration was specific to COVID-19. Since then, the city has taken multiple steps and measures to ensure that the health, safety, and welfare of the public and its employees is priority number one. We have since moved into phase one of Governor DeSantis's safe, smart, step-by-step plan for Florida's recovery. One of the most controversial items that will be discussed at the Board of County Commissioners meeting tomorrow is the beaches. With the executive order that the governor put in place some time ago, it restricted the access to all beaches throughout the state of Florida, but there was entities that moved into phase one before us, and their beaches were reopened. I have had the opportunity to serve on a task force of many managers throughout Palm Beach County as it relates to the beach here in Riviera Beach. One of the things that has been communicated as part of the conversations with other municipal managers and the county was the importance about a unified and consistent approach as it relates to the beaches and when the beaches are open. Tentatively, Palm Beach County has looked at reopening the beaches on May 18th. That is not a defined date yet. More information will be available at their meeting tomorrow at 9:30 because there has been discussions about the possibility of reopening the beaches after Labor Day, the Tuesday after Labor Day. The county has drafted Executive Order or Emergency Order 2006, which is available on their website, and you can take a look at some of the nuances associated with that emergency order. In that emergency order, it speaks on a couple of things: that the beaches will be open from sunrise to sunset, that individuals are to adhere to the CDC guidelines and recommendations, that no parties larger than 10 people, social distancing is to be preserved, and that individuals, when appropriate, to wear face coverings. The city of Riviera Beach has spun up another critical, important operation in our incident command structure, and that is exclusively concerning the reopening of our beaches. But I think it's germane to hear some of the things that the city of Riviera Beach is doing to make sure we do so safely. We are installing cameras on the beach to be able to get real-time updates with regards to the capacity of the beach. Currently, our municipal beach can accommodate roughly about 2,500 individuals by adhering to the CDC guidelines. We're actually going to reduce that number to 1,800 individuals to be able to ensure that there is more than adequate space for people to have a good time and to make sure that adequate opportunities for walkway aisles, etc., is preserved. We will also have almost like a concierge service or a monitor or host service where you will come up, you'll be greeted by staff that will be in the appropriate attire as far as identifying themselves as city personnel, and then they will walk you to whatever portion of the beach you would like to sit and set your items. They will make sure that the spacing is preserved, and then they will be communicating real time with regards to what is going on the beach. We will have roughly about anywhere from 8 to 15 individuals that will be traversing the beach to make sure that social distancing is preserved and that we can continue to monitor the capacity. We will utilize social media as well as our website to provide real-time updates as to what's happening on the beach. There will be a website that will provide you updates every hour on the hour concerning capacity and availability, as well as law enforcement personnel will be patrolling the streets in our communities to make sure that if individuals park, that they park appropriately and do not obstruct traffic. You will hear later on in the call the plan that is set forth and how we look to safely reopen our beaches and do so in a responsible manner. From the communications that I've had with other municipal managers, we in the city of Riviera Beach are taking it to another level because we believe that if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right and appropriately and make sure that we do not compromise the health, welfare, and safety of the public. To get into municipal facilities and recreational facilities and some of the facilities that we are accustomed to and we enjoy on a regular basis, some of those facilities will remain closed until further notice. For instance, our library and some of our recreation facilities will remain closed until further notice. The reason behind that is a lot of our facilities are inadequate to be able to provide the social distancing spaces that we need to provide services to the public. And we want to make sure that we protect the safety of our patrons as well as the safety of our employees. So certain facilities will not be coming online. Our summer camp and some of our other recreational activities have been postponed until further notice because of the same types of situations, making sure that we do not expose our young people to an environment that is not safe in this new norm. So we're looking at ways to look at things that can make sure that if we bring any programs or activities online, that it's done so in a safe and responsible manner. June 1st is the tentative date that we are looking to have a soft reopening of City Hall. By me saying soft reopening, meaning that we will be conducting business in City Hall, but we are going to encourage people to have appointments. If you do have an appointment, you can anticipate being screened by a CNA and temperature checks, screening questions, and ultimately making sure that you utilize hand sanitizers, or you do wash your hands. We are going to limit the opportunities for exposure for staff as much as possible, and so we will be utilizing a lot of digital means to still conduct business. As we continue to watch what happens in our community as it relates to this virus, we will then modify and change and adapt how we move forward. But it is important to know that the way in which we do business is going to be profoundly different as we operate in this new norm. We understand that our business community is hurting, and so we are advocating as much as we possibly can to work with Palm Beach County, that was a recipient of over $265 million from the federal government as it relates to the CARES Act. They have talked about the possibility of funding certain projects and initiatives and activities in municipalities. However, there has to be the infrastructure as it relates to the programs being created that the direct funding can be available. So it's incumbent upon us as a city to build out those programs to ensure that we continue to advocate for our residents and be able to get a slice of that allocation that has been provided to the county. One of the things that the municipal managers are talking about is consistently trying to push for the opportunity for appropriations based on our population. That is a fair and equitable way. But again, this is something that's still in the works, and city staff is going to be working diligently to make sure that we have a seat at the table and that Riviera Beach interest and the community is priority number one as we look to recover. We have heard from some of the local businesses about the possibility of road closures to be able to expand their outdoor seating. City staff is looking at programs in other municipalities to how to safely entertain that particular option, looking at ways to minimize the liability and risk, but also make it that much more easier for our businesses to be successful in our community. We want to make sure that there's fair and equitable treatment with respect to this program and this process, and that we can do so in a safe manner that doesn't jeopardize the business or the city or put the patrons in a situation where it becomes challenging for them. So we are looking at ways to effectively work with our business community. We've heard from the governor with regards to some of the other entities that are looking to open up. You've heard as early as today, it looks like Miami-Dade and Broward counties will be moving into phase one, but there's also information that's out there that their restaurant capacity is not the 25% in phase one, it is potentially 50%. So staff is doing some additional research on that, because if that is in fact the case, then we can anticipate the same type of actions to trickle its way north and that become a standard. We are also going to be providing information to the business community just by having conversations with regards to hair salons, barber shops, food establishments, and really encouraging individuals to have the appropriate protective equipment, do not have folks congregating in lobby spaces. So there will be situations whereby law enforcement will be making some contact with individuals just to help educate, inform, and even provide in some cases. We want to make sure that our public is safe and that we are doing so in a proactive manner. One of the things that we will be looking to utilize our law enforcement resources is that as we go out in the community and we see individuals that are walking down the roadways that may not have a mask, to stop and provide them with that mask. We have done a very good job as it relates to the total number of COVID-19 cases in our municipality. We are at about 42 confirmed cases, and that is since the inception of COVID-19 when it did start affecting the state of Florida. So if you look at that versus our percentage of our population, it's 0.13%. So we have been outpacing what the norms are when you look at some of the national models. Additionally, we have done a very good job in keeping those numbers low per thousand of individuals in our, and we've actually, between us and Lake Park, are at the bottom end of the spectrum as it relates to positive cases. So kudos to the public for adhering to the recommendations and the guidance that's been provided to keep our community safe, because we are seeing that pay dividends. You'll also hear today to not get lulled into a false sense of security. We're not out of this yet. As things start coming online and we do more testing, you're going to see the number of positive cases go up invariably because we're testing more people. There's 46 testing locations here in Palm Beach County. Riviera Beach has one. And if you haven't signed up to go to any of our testing facilities, our lines are still open, and they're open until 8 p.m. We have staff there that's ready to answer the phone if you call. The number for that is 561-318-0280, as well as our business community. So I want to thank the public for your vigilance. We keep you informed. With regards to the beaches, the City Council will be having a meeting at 6 p.m. tomorrow evening to discuss the reopening of the beaches and the conversation that occurred at the Board of County Commissioners meeting. The board is acutely aware of what is going on in their surrounding municipalities, and this is their opportunity, makers, to discuss this in a public forum. So that meeting will be held on all the platforms that we currently have, Riviera Beach TV, our social media on YouTube, Facebook, all that information, and that meeting will be broadcasted live on those platforms. At this particular moment, that concludes my report. Ms. Noel, I turn the call back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Next, we're going to hear from our EOC Operations Chief, Chief Kurd.
Good evening, everyone. John Kurd, Interim Fire Chief, serving as your Operations Section Chief. I'm going to go through some information that I've been compiling over the last few days to get a better picture of what exactly is going on with this pandemic. In the state of Florida, since the beginning of the pandemic, we've seen 43,210 cases reported in the state of Florida. We've also had 1,875 deaths throughout the state. In Palm Beach County, we've had 4,278 confirmed cases, with 263 deaths being reported. The Florida Department of Health's last update on number of cases within each municipality was yesterday, and Riviera Beach's cases since the beginning of the pandemic are at 43 total confirmed cases within our municipal boundaries. Looking at the testing data, currently the state of Florida has a 9.1% positivity rate. So basically, just shy of 1 out of every 100 people are going to be testing positive for COVID-19, 1 out of 10. Palm Beach County has a 6.54% of positive cases in testing. So I focused my research down to Palm Beach County and how we're being affected from a common sense approach, not utilizing any to May 3rd, which encompasses 6 weeks in which they've been collecting and sharing data. They've been collecting such as the number of new cases in the state and county by county, the percentage of positivity in the state and each county, and also the number of ER visits in the state and the county. In the 6 weeks of tracking this data, ER visits are on a steady decline, which is great news. We are seeing throughout not only the state, but in the county, ER entries or admissions into the hospital declining. The percent of positive cases has decreased positives. During the beginning of this pandemic, testing was only available to those individuals that were symptomatic. We now know that testing has been expanded to include just about anyone and everyone, and in week 2, we had a decline of 591 new cases. In week 3, continued decline at 537. We remain steady in week 4 at 545. In week 5, 56% increase from the prior week. But yet the percentage rates are at 6.54, or the positivity rates are at 6.54%. That is strictly relative option. I ask that you continue to wash your hands, hand sanitize, and understand just because we have moved into phase 1 and we are beginning to reopen, if you are over the age of 65, and I would even venture to 60, want to put yourself in a position, just don't go. Stay at home still applies if you are not comfortable going out into public. Also, some of the data from the Florida Department of Health site is in the last 10 days, we have 5 of the top 10 days in new cases since the beginning of the Florida Department of Health data collection. 5 of the top 10 days dating back to March 29th have occurred within the last 10 days in Palm Beach County. So again, I caution you, we are not out of the woods. This is the beginning of what they're calling that second wave, or an infectious disease doctor. I just use a common sense approach. If our percentage rates are down, but our numbers are going up, and we are now testing asymptomatic individuals, that would lead me to draw the conclusion that there are a lot of asymptomatic as put into staying safe go out the window. Operations is going to be transitioning into the recovery phase. While this is not a primary operation, we are transitioning to support other divisions within the EOC to develop beach reopening plans. We're going to continue to assist with COVID-19 testing. We're going to look to expand testing to antibody testing once it becomes readily available, and we find some antibody testing that is actually FDA approved currently, and this was of just a day or two ago. There are no approved FDA antibody tests on the market. The antibody tests that are out on the market have received an EUA from the FDA. An EUA is an emergency use authorization, so they are allowed to use their test, but none of them have become FDA approved. So we've been leery to bring it to our community without knowing what the false positive or what the false negative percentage rates are unequivocally. There's a lot of guessing involved, and our community deserves better than a guess. We're going to continue to work with Public Works and Mr. Bailey and the planning section to look at what facility control measures can be put in place to protect our employees and the community. Food distributions, mass Cuba in the Straits, they expect this to become, to transition from a tropical disturbance into a possible named system within the next 48 to 72 hours, forming off of our East Coast in between Florida and the Bahamas, in which it will rapidly move north and east, not affecting us a great deal, other than the weather we expect to move in throughout the evening, and some, at times, heavy winds and downpours tomorrow. So you can expect weather to decline throughout the evening. You can expect a rainy and windy day tomorrow, with conditions improving on Saturday, and that just lets us know, and it's just a reminder, that hurricane season is on the horizon. So please make sure you're putting your preparations in place for what hurricane season will look like in the midst of a pandemic. With that, I turn it back over to you with no other report. Ms. Noel.
Thank you, Chief Kurd. Next, we're going to hear from our Logistics Section Chief, Mr. Little.
Good evening, Mr. Manager, citizens. Rick Little, Logistics Section Chief. Just a brief update. Logistics is continuing to source and procure COVID-19 supplies for both staff and city events that we also issue PPE to the citizens in the city. And that's pretty much it for logistics. So I realize there are quite a few people behind me, so that's the end of my report for logistics.
Thank you. Next, our Planning Section Chief, Mr. Bailey.
Yes, this is Terrence Bailey, your Public Works Director, acting as the Planning Section Chief. The two large projects coming out of the Planning Section are continuing to support the Saturday COVID testing, the call center, and the operations to pull off that event in support of our Human Services Division, as well as our Phase 1 reopening plan and the long-term infrastructure necessary to bring city operations online and maintain distance and safety for not only the employees, but all of the residents. As mentioned by Chief Kurd, we are moving into hurricane season, and staff is quickly spinning up all of the activities necessary to protect the residents, the community, and be prepared for any hurricane activity that may occur in the 2020 hurricane season. That is your planning report.
Thank you. Next, our Finance Section Chief, Mr. Sherman.
Good evening, everyone. This is Randy Sherman, Finance Director, serving as the Finance Section Chief. Through Saturday, May 9th, City staff has totaled nearly 5,000 hours dedicated to COVID-19 activities. With the increased community services such as food and mask distributions, the total cost at this point are about $15 per resident. As the manager mentioned, the city managers are looking at the CARE Act funds received by the county. Last Friday, I can tell you that the finance directors in Palm Beach County had a meeting to discuss that same pot of funds. So we are eagerly watching what transpires there. I will tell you, a lot of the communities are seeing large revenue losses due to COVID-19, primarily in their special amenities that they have, such as golf courses or parking garages. We have neither of those, but we do have the marina, and I am happy to tell you that the marina is actually doing better than it was last year, as all of the slips are at near capacity. The one area that I do have a concern in, obviously, is with our parks revenues, but it is pretty minor in our overall operations. As far as the utility district goes, again, we continue to see a slowing of collections, but the billings remain strong, and our revenues are actually ahead of last year at this point. And that ends my report. Back to you, Ms. Noel.
Thank you. Next, our Human Services Section Chief, Ms. Grimsley.
Thank you. Good evening. This is Valerie Grimsley, YEP Director, acting as your Health and Human Services Section Director. Human Services continues to serve the community through weekly food and mass distribution, mental health linkages, family and individual strengthening virtual programming, and community engagement. To date, Human Services has distributed more than 20,000 masks to city residents, weekly grocery boxes including produce and fruit to more than 25 residents every week. In addition, Human Services has established a page linked to the city's COVID-19 page that is updated constantly, maybe every other day, with information that will strengthen and continually support the community and families of Riviera Beach. And with that, that's all for Human Services. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, from our Leisure Services branch, our beach group leader, Ms. Eladia Franks.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Eladia Franks, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation. To reiterate what the city manager said earlier, upon the municipal beach reopening with the anticipated date of May 18th, our goal is to ensure our safety of all of our patrons and our beachgoers and our residents and have an enjoyable time and enforce those CDC guidelines, because safety is a priority. Our beach will reopen. The operation hours will be sunrise to sunset, and there will be monitors on site, personnel along the beach, along the Ocean Mall and parking lots to ensure that those guidelines are enforced. To further communicate those guidelines, there will be signage, electronic boards, message boards along the entrances, along the beach to reiterate those rules. And there will be in English, there will be in Spanish and Creole. Also, the signage will reiterate those CDC, mask on, social distancing, 6 feet, wash your hands as well. As stated previously, the IT department is working diligently on implementing the website to represent our beach capacity using our GIS technologies and also in real time. I've also spoken with Chief Osgood and our Major Lewis, who has an ops plan that will be in place to make sure that the day goes very smooth. We're planning and anticipating a smooth but a safe transition for our beach reopening. And that is all that I have. Thank you, Ms. Noel.
Thank you. Next, our Legal Section Chief, Ms. Nguyen.
Good evening. The governor extended the Executive Order 20-121, which suspends mortgage foreclosures and evictions for non-payment of rent until June 2nd, 2020. Also, he issued Executive Order number 20-122, which moves Broward and Miami-Dade County into Phase 1 beginning on May 18th, 2020. The city today extended our state of emergency through June 3rd, 2020, and that is all from the legal section.
Thank you. Next is our communications report, which I will provide. Currently, our team is continuously sharing pertinent information to the community online, through our website, social media, conference calls, and various other methods. To date, we've been able to share over 134 posts that consist of notices and flyers and various information on the things that are going on in the city. And we're able to now reach over 190,000 people on the online community. In addition, communications is working with members of our EOC to assist in engaging those most hard-to-reach areas or neighborhoods who may not be as engaged as we'd anticipate during these critical times. So we are creating plans and a way to address them effectively, with hopes to see more individuals participating in the various services available to them. Finally, we've been working in partnership with the CRA to bring recognition to high school seniors who are expected to graduate this year. As you can imagine, due to COVID-19, high school seniors across the country will not be able to walk the stage and celebrate their achievements as it's been traditionally done. And so in response to that, we as a city and the CRA will begin our senior spotlight tomorrow, where we will be posting images and information on these future leaders of our city, both on the cities and the CRA's social media, such as Facebook and Instagram, and on RBTV Channel 18 through early July. So far, we've received over 50 submissions. Applications for seniors to participate in this initiative began last week, and the last date to submit their forms will be tonight at 11:59 p.m. Seniors can submit a form to us at riverabeach.com/RB Seniors 2020. And I'll spell that out RIVIERABCH.com/RB Seniors 2020. So please let a deserving senior that you know to submit a form before it closes tonight. So please look out for our spotlights. With that, that ends my report for communications. Now I'm turning it over to our information technology, Mr. Parzielli.
Good evening, Tony Parzielli, Information Technology Director. The City of Riviera Beach has been able to deploy and support equipment for a remote workforce that's out there. We've been doing this in IT with a split team with technicians on site in the office addressing walk-ins and on-site response, and technicians responding, another group of technicians working remotely, responding to phone calls and tickets submitted online. In addition to the global shortage of a lot of other supplies, like technology equipment has also been added to that list that's out there that's been necessary to supply a rapid increase in people working remotely. The items in highest demand and shortage right now are laptops, tablet computers, and mobile phones. This shortage also impacts the city. We're starting to see, as we look to replace equipment, anywhere from 10 to 40% increases in cost, and very, very long lead times. So that's the report from Information Technology.
Thank you. With that, that completes our staff report. Now I will turn it over to our city manager for final remarks.
Again, thank you everybody for listening in on the call. One of the things that I think is important to note is the time, energy, and effort that staff is deploying to ensure that the public is aware of what's going on and that the community is safe. Everybody is operating exceptionally well in this new norm, and it's a testament to the leadership of the elected officials that have supported us through and through and have been the voice of reason and the ones to really set the tone as far as what their expectations are. So routinely, staff is the ones that may be out front communicating this, but it doesn't happen without the elected leadership that makes it all run. With regards to some additional information due to inclement weather that's anticipated for tomorrow, the food distribution for tomorrow has been canceled. We would look to restart that again next Friday on May 22nd. So that was just provided to me via electronic communications by the Health and Human Services Section Chief. Again, thank you so much for listening on the call. We will provide the elected officials a briefing similar to this at their city council meeting on Wednesday to get into some more nuances associated with what we're doing concerning COVID-19. But you can tune in tomorrow to watch the meeting at 6 p.m. where the city council will be discussing the potential of reopening the beaches based on some of the information that's provided to them as a part of the county discussion. So thank you everyone for being on the call, and that concludes our comments for this evening.